Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to spend this afternoon with us. Again, my name is Cynthia, and I am the organizer for Discover Drones as an instructional platform. We will talk about how you can use drones to build STEM connections for career pathways. Our sponsor is PCS Edventures. PCS is Pat's Computer School, which launched in 1988, over 30 years ago. It was an after-school lab program where students would come and tear down computers and build better ones up. The program was so successful that one lab became another and then another. The programming expanded from computers to robotics to engineering to dynamics and many other wonderful programs. The company later pivoted to kit these wonderful programs and make them available to educators and students worldwide. PCS Edventures is right now in more than 7,000 sites in all 50 states and in over 17 countries. We're driven by the philosophy that hands-on projects fuel a passion for learning and a lifelong love of STEM. We have 4 product lines: our Brick Lab collection, our enrichment programs, our Discover series, and of course, our very popular drone collection. Our programs are turnkey solutions that include absolutely everything you need to implement the program. At one range of the spectrum, we have team programming with materials for up to 30 students, and at the other end of the spectrum, we have self-guided, student-driven individual kits. Right now, during this distance learning needs, our individual kits have been widely successful and acquired by districts nationwide to be able to send home these individual kits so students can continue building this awesome STEM experience, whether it's building a robot and programming it and so on and so forth. We have a lot of individual kits. If you have any questions about them, please reach out to our ambassadors who will share all about them. Our curriculum is designed to spark interest in STEAM and STEM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Our drone collection programming facilitates career exploration, and we have an amazing training team and support team for all of our customers. Our customers are K through 12 classrooms, summer schools, after-school programs, clubs, libraries, and maker spaces. And now let's get started. The agenda for today, I will introduce our wonderful moderator who will then introduce an awesome panel of educators who will pose the following questions: how they use drones as an instructional platform, their experience with the RubyQ modular buildable drone. We'll touch on funding drone programs and how to get started with your own drone program in your learning environment. Then we'll go into the Q&A session where my colleague Ryan will take some of the questions asked in that questions panel, and we'll present that to our panel to address them. Any questions that we're unable to get through during this webinar, we will follow up individually with you and respond to your question. Then we'll wrap everything up. At the end, before you leave, there is a survey that will appear on your screen. We value your feedback, and in order to continue to produce valuable content to meet your STEM needs, please complete the survey and help us out. Your feedback is extremely valuable. Let us know how we did today and what we can do to better serve you in the future. Without further ado, I have the pleasure to introduce our esteemed colleague, Jim Schmidt. Jim, if you can turn on your camera and your microphone, and please join us.
Thanks.
There you are. Well, there you are. You beat me to it.
Yeah, I'm a little anxious to get started.
Well, welcome, Jim. Please share your background and experience with our audience. I'm going to be here in the background. I'm going to turn off my microphone and hand this over to you.
And thanks again for your introduction and some of the history about PCS. It's a great company that's been around a long time, and the reason it's around because we provide some excellent hands-on materials for students and teachers and parents. So my name is Jim Schmidt, as you already have noticed. I've been in education longer than sometimes I want to remember. The key role of one of the key roles that I played in my career was developing a career technical center in the Boise School District. And it was a premier center that we modeled after many, many centers that we saw around the country. And we think that we came up with the best, of course. Part of that entire process of building a center like that is to develop community partnerships with industry and with other school districts and state legislators and a variety of different stakeholders to make it successful. So I think the center is still striving today and is doing very well. And I think it still provides program services for around 600 students a day. That was before Corona first when it hit the news in the spring, but who knows what it's going to be like as we move forward in the fall. But it is still a great center, a great place for students to get some hands-on industry experience and skills to go to work. So I'm really very, very proud of that project, and it's still thriving today. So, and then after that, I joined PCS as a consultant in 2007. When we were working on some international projects as well as domestic projects. And it's been a great relationship. I've enjoyed working with the staff here, and they are really truly committed to wanting to provide STEM activities for kids K through 12 and beyond. And it's really an opportunity that I've enjoyed and hope to continue for a few more years. So it's been great. And at this point, I would like to introduce our next speakers, or panelists, I should say, who I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to do so because they're all excellent educators. They've got great experience to pass on, and I think you'll truly enjoy hearing from them. Kelly Dean, who is an assistant principal now, but has been an educator for years in classrooms and training, private nonprofit organizations, a number of different experiential opportunities, and also an excellent trainer for PCS in the past as well. Then Justin Touchstone, who is a great friend and colleague who works for the State Division of Professional Technical Education and is a program quality manager, but he's really interested in seeing the kids get the information that they need about STEM. And I know we've talked many, many times about the use of drones, and he's going to share his expertise with you. And then Matt, who I just met this morning or this afternoon from Washington, is a teacher in the middle school grades. And I mentioned to him that that's the never ever changing group of students to work with because they're different by the moment, it seems like. But we're really fascinated and interested to have him here. So I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Dean at this point and have her share a little bit about who she is.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Kelly Dean. Like Jim said, I've been in education for a long time and in a variety of roles, one of which was with PCS Edventures for about 7 years, where I was director of curriculum and training and enjoyed my time with them. So today I am going to be a part of the panel and help you guys kind of sort through drones and how to use them and possibly some funding.
Thanks, Kelly.
You bet.
Justin?
Well, good afternoon. I'm glad to be here. I've only been in education for about 10 years, and 13 years prior to that, I was actually out in the industry working as an architect. And you know, life moves you around and shifts you into different things. But it's been a great pleasure serving in the educational world. And a few years ago, Jim came to me and said, "Hey, Justin, I've got this new drone thing. We'd like to see how we can set it into schools, and we're doing this this giveaway through the STEM Action Center." And so I got kind of roped into doing some work with Jim. But it's been a pleasure. I really have enjoyed it, and I think, you know, some of the experiences we developed through the Technology Student Association. I'm the state advisor for that through CTE, through Career and Technical Education. We have student organizations where kids come and they compete and they show off their knowledge and their skills. And this has just been one a statewide contest that we've developed here in Idaho, but it's actually spread out through quite a few different states now. I've had the opportunity to share with my peers in other states. I was talking to the panel just before we all came on that I have a peer in Kentucky who started one very similar to what we're doing here in Idaho. So I think it's a great program and it's a great product and it works really well, the PCS product. So I'm excited to be here to talk and share my expertise, talk about funding and integration into the classroom for teachers.
Thanks, Justin. Matt?
I'm Matt, and other than what's listed on there and what Jim has been saying, I've been teaching middle school, primarily science for those 22 years, and then got roped into the CTE world in the last few years. Been flying drones with kids in multiple different ways. I'm happy to share those experiences with you and answer any questions that you have for this really cool product that kids love, I love, and our school community loves.
Thank you. So the next slide that we're going to look at has something to do with the overall use of drones, and it's sometimes puzzling how we can use drones within an instructional platform. And that's the one thing that administrators always want to know is, why am I going to be spending money on this if it doesn't really relate to some curriculum somehow? So we're going to next cover the next question is, how do you use drones as an instructional platform? So Kelly, would you like to explain to us or give us some ideas about your ideas about instructional platform issues for drones?
Sure. So drones have been actually introduced in an instructional platform in both the after school and school day programs, depending on what it is your goals are. And as it's become more popular in really probably the last 5 or 6 years, it's really taken on more of a school day approach, and many CTE programs have taken on those as well. I think there's a couple of things to consider when you're looking at a drone package for your building is obviously the age of your students, the group size that you're working with, and then the ability to expose your students to the actual drones themselves. And that really is kind of wraps it all up, because that ties right back into group size and age. So age is really relevant by the type of drone that you want to introduce to the students. And, you know, teacher discretion is really necessary there. Depending on if you're a high school, the Ruby is a great drone to bring in, even as an introductory level. And if you're a younger school teacher or even primary, there's definitely drone packages to work as an introductory set for them as well. But once you decide what package it is you want, it really, to me, is about group size and being able to get the kids flying the drones. So, you know, it's kind of that old adage of, you know, you got the train set for Christmas, but you never got to play with the trains. And so it's the same thing with the drones. Kids have to be able to be exposed to them and be able to fly them and work with them and understand from top to bottom. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we move through the webinar. So if you have the right drone for the age and you have enough drones, or at least the right group size, that you can really expose the students to the drones and everything that the drones are capable of doing, then you're going to be successful on any instructional platform that you choose to bring the drones into.
Kelly, you were talking about group size. What is the recommendation that I know when we've done training, we kind of give the teachers sometimes some guidance on group size? What would that be from you?
I mean, I know it's crazy to say this, but I would prefer everybody has their own drone. And I know financially and space wise, that isn't always part of the equation. But really, I wouldn't personally, I think really when you're looking at 2 or 3 people, and I think Justin and Matt can talk a little bit more about what they're doing as far as size in their classrooms and how that's worked for them. But you do need a pilot, and you do need, basically a co-pilot, right? So you need somebody tracking that drone and having eyes on the drone. So you can't really do less than 2 in my mind. But any more than 2 or 3, then that exposure piece goes down, because 45 minutes or 50 minutes, even maybe you're doing block schedule of 90 minutes is not a lot of time by the time you get the drones out and you get them launched and all of that.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. Justin, how about you? What are your thoughts?
You know, Jim, to kind of piggyback on what Kelly was talking about, I think the other key piece that I've seen with as I work with teachers is getting the teacher comfortable with drones. Because if a teacher's not comfortable with the drones, they're not going to let students fly drones. And I think that's been a critical piece. And I know PCS has done a really good job of providing additional ongoing training for teachers. So, you know, I always recommend to my teachers as they ask for money to put into to buy drones to put into the classroom, that they include in part of their request, you know, training, PD, go get their Part 107, because it's just like any other equipment that we put into CTE classrooms, that if the teacher's not comfortable or readily understand, if they don't understand how to use it, then the kids aren't going to have that opportunity. So to me, that's one of the big keys that I think as you speak of sizes and stuff like that. You know, and I agree, you know, in our contest, we have teams of 4 max. I think that gives the kids, each kid, an opportunity to be a pilot. It gives kids opportunities to be kind of the crew chief and the spotter, you know, so that they all kind of, they rotate through all those different aspects of it so that they kind of get exposed to all aspects. And then with our contest that we created for the Technology Student Association, we actually have kids do a kind of where could drones be used in the world outside of just, you know, inside of racing or other things, and what's the problem that they think they could solve using a drone, and kind of have them research it out, talk about the design and development of what that drone would have to look like. Maybe, you know, how does it fly? Is it a fixed wing? Is it a prop? You know, to kind of get them to be thinking a little bit further than just, oh, I'm out there flying a drone, you know, on my little controller and that's it. Kind of thinking about careers and thinking about designing and developing and how these could be used. So I really love to see drones being used as a project-based learning tool. You know, give the kids a challenge to solve and let them try to figure out how to best solve it, and not give them anything other than what the problem is, and say, this is what you got to do with your drone. You go figure out how to make it do X, Y, and Z. So, you know, as teachers develop that, you know, you talk about integration. That's where, if you don't have enough drones in the classroom for all the kids to be flying drones at one time, you can create a project where one group of kids is maybe working on the design and development of the project, and the next group of kids may be testing and refining that while flying the drone. And then another group of kids could be on the other end of writing up their reports, you know, what worked well, what didn't work well, you know, what aspects would I change if I had more time in the future. So those are the you know, I think as an instructional platform, and then PCS has that the Ruby IQ is really great with building. You know, they have to build it, you know, plug the wires together, understand the motors, understand the flight patterns, understand how the components go together, how to fix and repair things, because in the field, you know, you're the only technician. Sorry, my dogs are in my office. I apologize. But you know, learning how to understand all the components and parts and pieces is also a really good integration into the classroom. So I think that's where I see this fitting into what we see going forward. I mean, I talked to my colleagues at work about, you know, the automation of the world, and drones are just going to be part of that automation. You know, search and rescue, power companies are using it to fly power lines to look for, you know, weak spots. Fish and Game is using it to monitor elk herds and fish populations. You know, jobs that were typically done by a human are being replaced by these, you know, by drones and stuff in the future. So I think that automation is another piece to just get kids thinking about those careers.
Thanks, Justin. Next is Matt. We seem to have lost Matt for a second.
Yeah, I think his connection might have dropped off. So we can.
Well, let's go on. We're going to move on into the next section and talk about the RubyQ itself, and how does the RubyQ drone compare with other drone products? I mean, we're of course very familiar with the RubyQ because that's a product that PCS markets, and they also market some smaller drones. But the thing that about the Ruby Q that I found in many of the trainings is that it's built to last. It's not something that's gonna, it's not a consumable item much, and it can be used over and over, and it's very sturdy. So Kelly, would you talk a little bit about how when we do the training for the Ruby Q, just how teachers react to that product and the kinds of things that they get excited about during the training?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So the Ruby Q, I think what you said, Jim, is true. It's really a robust drone. And so it has the longevity that you need when you're putting that kind of financial backing into a program. I think that when you go through the training with a Ruby Q, initially, if you don't have much exposure to drones, it's a little bit overwhelming because you start from the bottom up. And I think that's really important. And it goes back to what Justin had mentioned as far as teacher training and the teacher really understanding the product that they're using with their students. And so through our training, we actually take teachers from the literally the box all the way up to a, if you will, full-grown drone, and then start the process of learning how to fly the drone in different settings. And so students, when you go then, when you have that kind of exposure and then can transfer that knowledge over to the students, there's a number of soft skills that are involved in building the drones as well. And the biggest one is cooperation and collaboration with your peers and really having that ability to listen and follow directions well, because some of the instructions are very specific. And as a matter of fact, Jim and I built one together about a year ago, February, I think, Jim, wasn't that when we built our Ruby together?
That's right, it was. Yes.
Yeah, and so, and there are things that can go wrong. So it really requires patience, and it requires, like I said, those soft skills. And so, like I said, I think the biggest thing that we offer with this, as far as how it compares, is it really is what I like to call a top-down product. So you start with the box and you work all the way down until, or you could call it a top-up product, and work all the way until you have that final product. And the beauty of that is you really do know the ins and outs of the components on the Ruby as well, so that if something goes wrong, you've been exposed to, the antenna or battery or the cables or something like that because you've been working with them.
I think, Kelly, something that Justin brought up earlier, which is really important, is about the comfortableness, the compatibleness, and also what the comfort level is for teachers when they first come into the training and when they leave the training.
Yeah, like I said, it's pretty overwhelming when you first sit down, especially if you don't have any exposure. I mean, I think most of us know enough about drones to be dangerous prior to deciding if we are going to, bring one into our classroom or instructional setting. I mean, and I'm the first one to tell you, I was too. I'll tell you the other thing, that they're a blast. And so they're fun to work with. But yeah, having that ability to take the product from a box to a finished really does take that anxiety down for people, because it's that idea of you have that model there. So if you go to take it back into your classroom, if for some reason there is some misunderstandings in the instructional verbiage, then you have that model there that you can go back to and be able to retrace your steps. And I think that's really important as well. And so the level of anxiety drops, in my opinion, for all of us in our trainings that we've done together. They're very comfortable by the time that they leave.
Thanks, Kelly. And Justin, you've had a lot of experience looking at drones of all different sorts and natures and kinds, and you name it, you looked at it, it seems like. So what are some of your thoughts on how the Ruby Q compares with other drone products?
You know, Jim, as we developed our PSA contest, we went down to Utah, and they have a pretty robust ROAV contest down there, and they were using the Parrot drone. But I think the big difference with the Ruby, I think Kelly hit it really well, that it's that building piece of it where, I sit through a couple of the trainings and watch teachers try to get it built and try to get things paired and try to get, everything working right. And they went through some of the frustrations that their kids are going to have. And, you don't get that with, if I buy a box drone. If I buy a DJI, I pull it out of the box, I charge the batteries for an hour, and I go outside and I fly it. I mean, and there's no understanding of how this thing functions. There's no understanding of how it works. So I think comparatively, that aspect I think is really nice that teachers do walk away. And they asked us when we did the first round of training, they were like, can we have additional training? They want more time on them to fly them and get used to them, and to learn how to troubleshoot. So I think the PCS Ruby, meets some of those needs. Now with our drone contest, we've opened it up a little bit, and we've had a couple of programs that the students have built their own from scratch. They had to go out and research the parts and research the frames, and that's challenging in itself if you as a teacher don't understand what are the right components to buy and you're just trying to figure it out. And I think the Ruby kind of bridges that spot between being an amateur kind of pilot to getting to be that expert pilot where you know what components you should be buying, and you kind of understand the components and the motor sizes and brushless versus not. There's lots of things and subtleties to know, and I think this product helps kind of bridge all that, where if I just bought one out of a box, I don't learn any of that. So I think that's really valuable both for teachers and for students, because again, hands-on, getting frustrated, learning how to communicate with your team. If you watch kids build, there's always going to be that one that thinks they know everything and thinks they can build. I don't need no instructions. I can just put this thing together. And, typically what happens is that's the boys. And then you have the girl on the team that's like, no, here's how we do it right. And they get it, they usually get it worked out. When I was teaching pre-engineering, that's, that was always kind of the funny thing. The guys would just rush in and try to figure it out. The girls actually would take their time and meticulously go through and do things. And they always had some better solutions than that. But it's a good learning platform for that. And I think it beats other out-of-the-box drones because of that. That it does give a really well-rounded experience to kids and teachers.
The other strong piece, I think, about the curriculum, you can both address this as well, as the safety component within the curriculum is very strong. And that's probably with the FAA, that's one of the major things that they were harping to us about as an advisory group, that make sure whatever you're going to do is going to be safe and that people know the rules. So how do you think the curriculum platform addresses that issue?
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Matt. Sorry, I lost my internet.
That's all right, Matt. Welcome back.
So I'm on the phone at the moment, and I'm going to be moving, trying to get things going.
Okay.
But that was one of the major things that I wanted to just talk about was the curriculum, and just how PCS separates itself from other kits that are around. The extensions and the things in the curriculum, the lessons, absolutely fantastic product to use because of that. And that's my big point I wanted to make sure I threw in there.
There, we finally got you up on the screen there, Matt, so we can all see what you look like.
Yeah, I would back up what Matt said along that same vein. I think PCS does a really nice job of including that, because you can build all the drones you want, but if you don't understand, what to do with them, or the rules and regulations around them, they're really useless and they're going to be grounded all the time. And so that's a really key component. I think Matt said it nicely that PCS does a nice job. Again, it's that turnkey approach to drones in the classroom that sets PCS, the product, apart from others.
Yeah, and that's what I was hearing from Justin too. When you get the DJI drones or some other thing off the internet, and it's all boxed and packaged, and you don't see what's happening through the curriculum. It walks you through step through step. So those, two big key points.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim, if I could, I think the other nice thing with the curriculum is there's a lot of unknown, sometimes fear, I don't know if that's the right word, by administrators and superintendents. Maybe not Kelly, because she understands them, but other administrators don't necessarily understand drones, and they get all worried about, if we bring these into the school, are kids going to be inappropriate? Do they understand the laws? What are the legal ramifications of having them? And I think the curriculum with PCS, helps address some of those concerns with administrators, because you know, I know that's one of the challenges I have going up to the national level with my contest is the nationals is just, they've got a lot of hesitancy to adopt it because they're just worried about, you know, kids misbehaving or not knowing it. It's just a lack of understanding on their side of the laws and the rules. And so I think the curriculum really helps to kind of bolster your argument to have put into the classroom. You know, as you work through that with your superintendent and your principal and your building level principals. But I think it's a good piece to have. It's a good argument. It makes a good statement.
The safety component really is a strong element, and it does put a lot of administrators probably more at ease. There you go, Matt. We've got you.
I love it.
Don't you love just technology is great when it works.
It is.
Matt, is there anything else that you'd like to add about the comfortableness of a teacher or the novice teacher taking the risk to try drones in the classroom? Is it a frightening thing, or how did it work for you?
Yes, a little bit. I mean, to be honest, it is a little bit frightening. It is a little bit scary to kind of stand back. You're putting something into the hands, the control of a student. It's 100% theirs, and at times that is a little bit scary. But I mean, man, I'm hearing Justin say this too. Through the curriculum, through the process, there was no point that I felt things were out of control. Kids respected it. We went through all the safety things ahead of time. It's fantastic. What a great learning experience too. Kids feel that same fear. I'm feeling the fear. And I shouldn't say fear, feeling the trepidation maybe of trying to grab something and do something new. But that's the whole learning. That's learning. That's power. You're putting this into the hands of the kids, and that's what you want. That's what you want as an educator. It's what you want as a program. Let kids take control of what they're doing. And with the pieces that are available through this kit, this is exactly what you want for kids.
Yeah, I just think that the platform is of the Ruby Q has a lot of strengths, and there isn't anything on the market that's perfect. And we can always make improvements. It really is a great place to start. And the beauty of it is that I have so much confidence in teachers and their abilities to figure out what's going to work best for them in their classroom. After they get it and they can see how it feels and things work, they soon adapt things to their own setting, and it seems to work really well. So teachers are very creative people and do a great job using the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And the one question that everybody asks, hands down, is what options have you discovered to fund drone programs? And that's always the major question that we get, but there's a number of different ways of funding the drone projects. And I think that creativeness is a big part of it, and also collaborating with other agencies and with different groups at the state level, at the local level, whatever it may be. So, Kelly, do you have any thoughts on funding options for the drones?
Yeah, I think, the drone, like anything that you want to get funded, can be really, really broad depending on the organization that you're going after, and they might fund STEM in general, or depending on what you're actually doing with your drones can get really narrow. So when you look at CTE programs or any type of potentially competition programs, those types of things, you can find funding for that. So it's really at your fingertips, especially with the internet now. And I listed a few here, and just a variety of some that are out there. But again, I think once you identify, and this goes in more to the next slide, once you identify the program and the purpose, then that's your first step. And then you start going after the funding.
And keeping in mind, a lot of these that Kelly listed are related to the state of Idaho, but every state has these same kinds of grants available. And so you just have to probably do a little bit of research. And libraries are a great source for grants. They have a lot of information on which grants are available and who and what the amount that they are able to provide and how to even go about applying for them. So use your local libraries as a resource as well.
Well, with CTE, we're a little bit different than just standard, educators, I guess. We're fortunate in the state of Idaho to have added cost dollars, which every program gets at least $9,876. Well, that's going to change a little bit with our holdbacks, but it's the nature of the beast. But we fund them. We fund our programs with added cost dollars, state added cost dollars. So that's one avenue that teachers could use. I know some ag programs have added drones using added cost dollars. We also have access to, through CTE, we have access to Perkins dollars and Perkins project dollars, where a district or an LEA could write up a project and ask for drones, ask for money for drones and training for drones, and that could cover professional development and bringing in trainers and whatever that looks like. So there's some dollars there. There's a couple of others that I thought of, Jim, as Kelly was talking. We also have for CTE, we've gotten about $700,000 over the last couple of years, and it's ongoing money now for what's called technical assistance. So if one of our CTE programs is performing a little bit below standards, they can apply for a technical assistance grant, and this would be maybe one area that they could use that money for. We also have two other funds that if a program's doing really well and they have access to about $5,000 of just a quality program. It's just an incentive award through the state now. CTE. So all those dollars could be used in that realm. But I think Kelly hit at the STEM Action Center. There's a lot of great grants out there for them. But if you're in the world of CTE, that's what you can do, and that's how we can help you out with dollars from our agency.
And every state has its CTE organization structure. So that's always something to tap into if you need to explore that a little bit more as well. So that's always a good option. Matt. Yep.
The only other thing I have to add, other than what Justin and Kelly are saying, is nothing too much different. I like the direct approach. I like asking very specific people for very specific items. We were fortunate enough to have a CTE advisor member to bring up this idea of drones, and through his organization, through his company, was very very helpful for us in getting that rolling on top of our CTE dollars. The only other thought that I have, and again, it's great having something in hand and then walking into like a PTSA and saying, look, this is what.
Yep. Grows up on us there. But I think Matt's comment, so yeah. Technology. Yeah. The other thing that is always important too, and I think Matt alluded to this, is that there are a lot of community organizations that all have some sort of educational arm that they would like to be a part of and contribute to the schools or programs or whatever the case may be, from Kiwanis to Boys and just so many different organizations that have that, the banks, the larger corporations in your community and so forth. So don't be afraid to ask. And when you do ask, make sure that you have a pretty good concept of what you want to do and why it's important, and that it does relate to curriculum. It's not just another gadget that you want in your classroom. So I think that's the other thing, is that sometimes administrators think, well, what is this going to do for our kids? Are they going to become better students because of this? And my answer, of course, to that would be yes, because they're going to be more engaged in learning and wanting to learn more about the math that it takes to build a drone, the language that it takes to communicate and collaborating, like as Kelly said. So there are a lot of different ways that it ties into the curriculum. And there are a lot of different places to receive funding from if you really want to explore those. So any other thoughts on funding?
I think we covered it.
Good. So now what advice would you give educators to start a drone program? And because sometimes it's hard to get started. And so Kelly, what would your thoughts be on that?
Yeah, so great question, because I think it goes back again to what we've kind of talked about throughout this program today. And that is, first thing is that as the program facilitator, the training behind that to make sure that this is a program that's in your wheelhouse, right? Is it something you're comfortable with and through the training and building that program, bringing that anxiety down. And most people who get involved in drones do it because they're very curious and have a passion for it. And believe me, it's a little bit contagious when you start and you go through your first training and you get to fly a few drones, and doesn't matter what size the drone is, they become very contagious. And it's pretty fun watching what educators will do in a training with drones, and way you can challenge them, right, to go outside of their comfort zone. I think when you start looking at and you decide, this is something I want to go over and this is or go after, and this is what I want to do with the program, then when you take a look at the goals of your program and identify your audience from that. So sometimes it's easier, depending on what you're doing, to maybe start a club, depending on if you're, let's say, K-8. And get your administrator on board, seeing how many people you had that signed up, but you could only serve X number of students, and really show that interest level is an opportunity or certainly an avenue to go. Or if you're a CTE teacher like Justin is, then you have that audience built in. But you still want to identify those goals, because anytime you go after funding, the better your program is set and lined out, then the more opportunities you have to actually acquire the funds that you need. And then, so that, again, that funding is easier to obtain if you know what your goals in your program is. So I think the other thing, it comes down to that recruiting. And if you make the program so that your marketing is that this is something incredibly exciting and we only have seats for so many people, and you really pump it up that way, I think your marketing in your program makes a huge difference. And then who's going to grab a hold of the opportunities that you put in front of them. And that's part of that recruiting piece as well. And then just launching that program. And that, to me, is the biggest component after you set the goals and do obviously some recruiting, but you know exactly what your audience is and who you're going to go after, is how are you going to launch this program so that it is very successful for you as potentially a first-time facilitator, and then also your students are gaining what they want. And sometimes when you go through a program for the first time, as you all know, as educators or administrators, sometimes it's just exposure, right? Getting the kids exposure, because that hooks them into the program in itself. And then now you have opportunities for advancement into different drones, such as maybe the Ruby, if you started with one of the smaller packages PCS offers, and then also more funding also.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah.
Justin.
Well, I'm going to go back to the point I made earlier that teachers should attend training and get trained to launch this so that they are ready to rock and roll when they put it into the classroom. And that might be some pre-planning. I think, Kelly had some good ideas of, setting up your goals and talking to your administration, because it may say, you might go, hey, over the next year, I'd like to get trained in this before we buy all this, and launch it into our classrooms, so that they're comfortable with it and ready to take kids through it and let the kids have those opportunities. I think PCS has been a great partner in training, been a great partner in, they bring a bunch of little tellos and they let kids who've never flown drones go inside of our tent where it's controlled. So if the drone gets out of control, it gets tied up in a net, and then you can quickly loosen it out. But they bring their simulators and their little tellos, and we let kids who've never been exposed to drones get exposed to drones. And then they actually, sometimes kids push their advisors to start a program in their school, and is added in. So, exposure, I think is the key to it for kids. But also making sure that the teacher and the administration are very comfortable with where this program will go. How does it connect into standards? How does it connect into learning? So that it's not just a gadget for kind of a one-off deal. But those are the ways that I would recommend, and that's how I've worked with teachers as they get ready to launch these programs into their schools.
Thanks, Justin. Matt?
listening to both
You're
Justin
on,
and
you're on
Kelly.
the front line, Matt. You can tell us everything we need.
Yeah, and looking at Justin and Kelly talking about just, you know, the big picture things. Man, whenever I start something new, I just start having so many questions, and I'm excited to hear what people have here through the different chat things or and different things. There are so many things to think about before getting this off the ground, literally, and making this thing happen. One of them, I mean, I'm hearing both Kelly and Justin say this is training, and then practice. Putting that drone in your hand of whatever it is, and getting up and flying, and just seeing what happens. So as an educator, as a person in charge, you have some comfort with what that is. The biggest success for what I think happened with our program, with middle school, grades 7 and 8, we did the Ruby Q, flying outdoors, the full thing, was getting kids a chance to fly inside, putting their hands on the drone in a very controlled situation. I was able to do that a second time that I taught the course. The first time we didn't, and it wasn't that great of a success as a class. It's just flying inside and getting hands on things. I highly recommend in talking to and just thinking about schedule. That's been the biggest amount of success for our program at our school. I found time when PE teacher was on a planning period, so we could fly in the gym. Huge use of space, and that made such a big difference for us. And just the ease of walking out and getting that done. Same thing, flying outdoors, talking to different people. Where are you gonna work? And that's just scheduling. That's not necessarily the equipment which we're talking about. We believe in. This is a great product. It's some of the other things to think about. I also list on here talking about just safety, making sure you have everything set for that. And then, man, just calling and talking to other people. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm sure Justin, Kelly, Jim, everyone's going to answer questions. And everyone through PCS has been fantastic when there's an issue. Call them up in the middle of class. Hey, help me out. What's going on? That's there for you. Practice, space, time, and communicate with those around you. I think those are the key things. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. There's just so many different things to think about when you begin to thinking about launching a program. So I guess at this point, I'm hoping that you'll have some questions, and please send those to us and type your question in the panel and to which panel member you would like it addressed, and we'll just kind of go from there. But while we're waiting for questions, do we have questions yet?
Yes, we do.
Okay, we'll have some questions.
Hi there, this is Ryan from PCS, and we have a question for each of the three panelists. I'll start with a question for Matt. And the question for you, Matt, is how has implementing drones changed your classroom? And have you seen any changes in students who are generally not engaged?
How's it changed my classroom? It's actually the tie to that I've made through the curriculum. In a middle school, it's been a little bit tougher to tie to actual careers. And actually using this with drones has really brought that in and talked about kids could explore careers, had an idea. They were so excited about stuff that they're actually learning today in the room, and a skill along with the knowledge of the drones, they could turn into a business. Brought in a few people around that actually are doing different things with drones and making some money that way. And kids really have made that connection between content and a career or some form of income. So that's been fantastic. What was the second part of the question? I'm so excited talking about that.
It was how have students who were previously struggling, how have they treated the implementation of drones?
Watching kids take ownership. Always the beauty of CTE courses, but specifically with this drone, and watching kids take off, and kids are so engaged with coming to class, and they know that it's going to be their day to fly. They check weather, they're checking things, they are engaged with the whole process. And it's not just come and sit and get, they are fully active and fully invested with what they're doing. And not having some of those kids in a science classroom compared to drones, I see way more involvement with them.
Thanks. Next question.
Yeah, so the next question would be for Justin, and that would be, are CTE instructors beginning to adopt drones for drone-specific courses, and can they function as a complementary tool in other courses?
Yes, we're actually looking at, I'm working with a school for precision agriculture. So that's going to be a specific course or a set of courses, maybe its own pathway, where they're going to actually set up a small plot of land with a farm, and they're going to set up sensors and monitor plant growth, water in the soil. Sorry, my throat's a little sticky here. And all those sorts of things. So other CTE pathways are picking them up outside of my engineering tech ed. So ag is one. Our trades and industry guy is looking at it too for even our electrical power sort of transportation models, where they are, there's a good ISU as a 2-year degree in drones, and those kids are getting hired for careers. They're getting paid $40,000 to $90,000. Sorry, I ran out of water, Jim. But they're getting paid good money for careers. So I think there's going to be a big expansion of pathways just outside of my area. Ag is probably the next big one for us. I think we're working on that right now. And so that will be coming out hopefully in the next, well, we got to create standards, then we'll create the pathway. So probably the next year or two, we'll have that precision agriculture pathway already on board.
All right, and the final question that we have would be for Kelly. And that question, Kelly, is what would you say is the most important attribute of a successful drone program?
Great question. I truly think it's the flying component and getting the kids in the air. That's my, I don't know. I mean, I say that, but then I think, the process of learning how to build it and learning how to work as a team. God, I don't know that I can really identify one piece of it. I think about the time when you watch the kids in teams of 2 or 3 and they're piloting and co-piloting. And then I think Matt or Justin mentioned that you've got a parts or mechanic on the ground that's doing that. I think all of those pieces are really critical to it and making it go or making it run well. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think it's everything you just said. Every single day of the class, when the kids have it up and running, having to work together and communicate, watching over each other's shoulders, the visual spotter watching what's happening, managing batteries, managing the safety of that. It's all a fantastic process. Putting your finger on one thing is a little bit tough. Watching kids fly and feel that success, that's the key component. I mean, as administrators, as my administrators come in and take a look, and parents and people that are watching the program, that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, I agree. It's just hard to really say that there's one component, because even though it seems like it is one program, there are very specific skills that go with each aspect of it, from the building of it to the safety, to the flying, and to the maintaining the drone. And so you can't really have one over the other. As an administrator, one of my favorite things is going into a classroom and watching the kids building and working together and problem solving, as much as it is being able to see the drones in the sky and watching the kids have such a great time with that. So.
In my observation, looking at the entire program, and I think it was addressed a little bit earlier by Matt, is about the engagement. Kids are so engaged in the process that very seldom do you find any kind of product or project that pulls kids together and they're just so totally engaged in what they're doing and see that need to know rather than nice to know stuff, because they know that everything is related to success and they want to be successful. So, and also the other important part is failure. To see something fail and then have to start over and try to solve and problem solve to figure out what went wrong. It's a great way to observe kids and to see how they're really truly engaged in the curriculum.
I think one of the components too that we haven't really addressed tonight is that management piece of the classroom, and how you set up your classroom makes a huge difference in the success of the drones and how the students treat the drones. And I think there is a little bit of a natural consequence to that component as well, because if a student isn't taking care of a drone, as an instructor or an administrator, you don't even necessarily have to take the drone from them, even though that sounds like the smartest thing to do, because the drone is going to fail on its own. And so the natural consequence comes because they weren't listening, or because they didn't treat it well, or, and I realize there's a give and take with cost and time involved in that. But it's something certainly to consider when bringing this component. There are some classes that, you have to really be a little more on it with kids. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So I am sorry, it is our graduation this evening for our kids. And so it starts in 1 minute. And of course, unfortunately, like everything is virtual this year, but I have thoroughly enjoyed my time with you guys. It was nice to meet everyone, and I wish you all the best out there. Those of you who are on and deciding on a drone product, you're welcome to call me at any time, and I'm happy to address any of your questions, or email me. I know they'll share my information out with you at the end. So thank you all very much.
I want to thank all of you for participating, including the people that were tuned in, especially our panelists. And have a great rest of the day, and thank you for participating with us.
Oh, sorry, I didn't think you guys were done.
Yeah, no, panelists and everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. If anybody has any additional questions that weren't answered, we'll definitely follow up with an email and share answers with you. And for those of you that have any questions for our ambassadors, their contact information is here on the screen. Please don't forget to complete the survey. Your feedback is extremely valuable for us. Thank you again for your time, and everybody have a wonderful and safe day.